would be willing, children or students would be willing to volunteer their time to help this cause and dedicate their time to babysitting, whatever we can do as a community to make this work. But we need to be able to pass those budgets forward if there is going to be an override, because the only way for it to go to an election on May 6th is for us to stand up and vote for those things. So this is a process. There are people looking for solutions. The people of Enru and Stand for Children are looking for solutions. Michael Prisco stood up at the Board of Selectmen meeting the other night and made a lot of suggestions about revenue opportunities, and he's invited everyone here to go to a meeting tomorrow night at the town hall at 7:30 if you'd like to be part of a community effort to look at where we can get some additional revenues going forward. So again, there's plenty of people that are looking for solutions, and I've asked you to join us in doing so as well. And that's pretty much it. I want to thank you all for the great job that you did tonight, and thank you for everything you do for our children every day.
I commend Deanna for her efforts, but I want to say this: I don't see much of a problem passing an override budget at town meeting.
Right.
We really need to get out at the May election and get people out, because the overrides, the history of the town, have failed at the polling booth, at the election booth, and not at town meeting.
I just want to add, Deanna has taken the lead in a lot of these efforts, and I know a lot of other people are helping her out now, and probably like, I think it was Laurie or somebody going to see Dick Hodges all the time. We hear a lot from Deanna, and that's great, because she keeps it in our face, and that's important, and I think that's what she's telling you people to do. You have to keep it in our face and everybody's face. Sometimes we don't want to read it every day, but that's what we get elected for. So, don't hesitate to contact us at any time. And I want to thank Deanna for really kind of spearheading these efforts, along with Marcy and Kara and a lot of the other people who are involved with Stand for Children and Enru, because I think you're doing a tremendous job.
And I would just add that even though the likelihood of an override passing a town meeting is great, it's not a bad idea for everybody to be out there anyway, just to begin the mobilization.
Right. Show of force is always important. Sir?
Thank you. I'm John Peter Lee. I live on North Street, been in town for 10 years. I'll make this brief because it is getting late. This is for everybody here. This is a pen, and this is paper. We have a newspaper in town called The Transcript. Everybody here probably has a story. Everybody here has a really good story. Why don't you write something down, 500 words or less? It'll help you crystallize your message, okay? This will help you formulate what you need to say to your friends, to your neighbors, to people online, wherever you meet them. Because as we said, we have to communicate. We have to get this message out to the rest of the town. The Transcript should be running extra articles around all of those aspects that I heard here tonight, because I knew very little about all this stuff. I came here originally to talk up the arts. I'm an artist, I'm a scientist. The most influential person in my life was my high school art teacher. That was 25 years ago, and I'm still living to the challenge he gave me to combine science and art. Those are the two areas I had the greatest interest and strength in. This guy looked like he walked out of a bebop club with a goatee, a beret, all the accoutrements. But he saw all that time ago about science and art. I do this every day in my living. If it wasn't for that art teacher, I don't know what I'd be doing today. I certainly wouldn't be as successful. Thank you very much.
Unless we have any more comments, I think I'll let Dr. Cho close, but Mr. Mosseri did ask a question, and it's a really difficult question. I've had the same question asked of me by several people over the last week or two as to what the priorities should be. And I look at this list and I say, how do I pick priorities? So I sat down and I wrote down my number one priority, and it was return to 5 full days of school and return music and art to the school so we can do that. And then I wrote down my number one priority, which said add reading and literacy to the elementary schools, because if we don't, we're going to suffer in the long run. And then I said, wait a minute, my number one priority is, we can't have 30 to 35 kids in high school classes anymore. And then I said, wait, my number one priority is, we need health education in the middle school. The state tells us we have to have that. And then I said, wait, well, we have to hire ELL teachers, and we have to hire special ed teachers and paraprofessionals. So Bob, I'm not trying to avoid your question, but I don't know how I personally can take one of those or two of those things and say, this is the priority, because the priority to me is what's in the override budget.
Mel, for 350,000, tell him whatever he wants to hear.
Yeah, that's the problem.
But I think that what we have to be careful of is repeating what we had last year. Because if we do that, it's just going to doom next year. We have to think outside of the box, and the superintendent prompted this thought back in November when we started the budget process. And perhaps when we restore art, music, and gym in the elementary level, it'll take a different form. Maybe it'll be a longer stretch, fewer days, or a shorter stretch over more days. Maybe the 2 hours on Wednesday afternoons go away to some extent. Maybe kids go a little late, or maybe they come home a little early. Maybe international cultures at the middle school is not restored, but it's replaced with a health class.
Right.
You know, we have to be forward thinking and put things back in place in a way that they're not on the chopping block again next year. And we have to, as a committee, think about all the kids, pre-K through 12. So we can't turn around and look at one school or one level and give them 100% and somebody else nothing, because we're doing a service to neither group. Next year, we will need money again, and those same kids will be back up on, their classes will be uppercuts. And so we need to think about how we incrementally add back, how we incrementally restore what we've lost, meet the state mandates, and have some component of change, of forward moving. We need help in the middle school. We didn't have one before, so it's not a restoration, but it might be a replacement. So these are the kind of thoughts that are coming up to us from the administrative level. And we have to consider, we have to avoid the phrase, restore Wednesdays. We have to restore programs and bring the time back into the day. And what that will look like may be very different from what it looks like right now. But the school committee and the superintendent we are committed to making a quality of education, and that means additional time and smaller classrooms across the board. And how we'll do that is yet to be determined down to the exact answer that you can hold our feet to the fire on. Because if we tell you that right now, I guarantee you when school opens in September, we'll be eating our words, because between now and September, there will be kids that move in town, there will be second grade classrooms that go over 30, we'll need to add a teacher, there will be a special needs student move in this town. We need to have the flexibility to manage those funds, and I think that history has proven that the school committee in North Reading, maybe different membership, but the school committee in North Reading has always been committed to kids, always. And our record, the 5 of us have a record of proving that as well. And that's what we're going to do. You just cannot lock us into a very specific answer this early. This is for the budget that goes in place in September for those kids. So we need the flexibility, or else next year somebody will say, you lied, you said, you did this instead. And we don't want to ruin the reputation of the North Reading School Committee, because people work so hard to make it a responsible, dependable committee that it is.
If you were to ask me my priorities, I would have to start with the ELL teacher, because there's a compliance issue. I would have to go with literacy and reading, because that is the root of everything. Before I could worry about the short days on Wednesday, I would be worried worried about the study halls in the existing days and trying to restore art and music to the level that every student at the middle school got them every year, and restore them to the level that every school was able to manage concerts and performance opportunities for their children. And that would not necessarily restore Wednesdays. Programs, I think people understand intellectually that the Wednesdays have become a shorthand for programs, but that shorthand can become dangerous because it can take the place of programs. We have to put back the rudiments before we can finish off the fine points. I hope that we'll get this full budget, that no override will pass in this community, and that all of these programs will be fully instated in September. I think it's crucial for our students. We knew when the override failed that this was going to be a tough year, and we thought we could get through a tough year. It has been a lot tougher than I expected, and I've been on this committee for many years. It's been tough at every level and in ways that I never guessed. If we don't put this back to the level of the school committee's recommended budget, it will mean a second year of shortchanged children. And there comes a point where you start to lose them, and you lose the momentum in your school system. We can get past a year. I don't think if we get this budget, that there will be any lasting damage to the system from the 1 year that we've had this year. If we don't get the school committee's recommended budget, I believe there will be lasting damage.
Any other school committee members?
No, I more or less concur with Maureen said. I mean, I think we have to see what the funding is and then reestablish our priorities. And quite frankly, I'd probably choose to spread some of the money around throughout the system, as Maureen suggested, at the elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school level. But again, without an override, I mean, the selectmen, and let me say this, this board of selectmen in particular, and I've been involved in town government now for almost 20 years, is extremely supportive. I've heard comments today about the other members of the board of selectmen. But this board of selectmen is extremely supportive of education in the school department. But they have some constraints on what they can do. The fact that they're offering to come up with the additional funding for the school department is encouraging, because it's not enough, but at least it gets us back to that status quo as a fallback position. But beyond that, getting funding beyond that from the town side, I think is going to be very, very difficult. And I'm not sure what's going to happen at town meeting, but I think the override is an absolute necessity, because we're on a slippery slope. I mean, without the override and without the infusion of additional funds, we have nothing to look forward to next year. This isn't like it's going to go away, that suddenly there's going to be additional revenues coming from the state or the federal government or the town. We're looking at this type of a problem every single year. The override that we passed 4 years ago sustained us for 3 years. But if you look back, every single year, there was a diminishing return on that override, every single year, to the point where now, in the 4th year, that diminishing return has manifested itself in these cuts that you're all concerned about, that we're all concerned about. So it's only going to get worse. The override is a temporary solution. It's a structural defect in the way education is funded in Massachusetts. Some people hit on it tonight, and it's got to be fixed at the state level. We cannot do it at the town level. Even if our enrollment levels off, which hopefully it will, we're still stuck in a situation where salaries constitute 82% of our budget, and going forward, just the salary increases alone are going to exceed the 2.5%. That doesn't even take into consideration the inflationary factor. It doesn't take into consideration increasing enrollment. It doesn't take into consideration more and more mandates from the state and federal level. I don't know how our administrative staff keeps up with some of the mandates that they have to comply with now. In special education, you've heard Christine talk about that. So structurally, something has to be fixed, and we keep trying to put Band-Aids on it so we can get through the year, and we've been pretty good at doing that. But at some point in time, the town isn't going to be able to fund